You're watching ABC7 News at 7.
Dispatchers are working around the clock to answer your calls during an emergency, but some people take advantage of the system and contact operators in unnecessary situations. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jacqueline Matter in for Alan Cohn tonight. Welcome to ABC7 at 7. We'll have more on the phony 911 calls in just a moment, but first, our top 7 stories at 7. In the days before the city makes its final approval on a budget, the city clerk has asked commissioners to spend $600,000 on a new building. The city clerk says she needs a building to store all of the city's documents, but the argument is that the 2,500 boxes can be stored elsewhere for a lot cheaper. The currently empty space in question is on the corner of 17th Street and Beneva. It would cost $610,000 for the city just to buy the building. That does not include $600,000 needed for the inside. The mayor says this money would come out of this year's budget, but Mayor Alpert is the only one who voted against it. Expect to see an increase of cars on the road for the July 4th holiday, and while some thieves may use it as an opportunity to steal your personal information, the U.S. Secret Service is cracking down. National Secret Service agents are taking part in an initiative to recover illegal credit card skimming devices from gas pumps. The Secret Service led a similar campaign over the Memorial Day holiday weekend, where it recovered more than 70 skimmers across the country. Nearly 50,000 people in Manatee County are unsure where they'll get their next meal, and now that group may face even more challenges this summer. The Food Bank of Manatee is no longer working with the Feeding Tampa Bay agency. Feeding Tampa Bay is now distributing donated food to several other food banks, a move it believes will get the food to more people who need it. However, one of the food pantries now left out of that equation says it is already seeing a decrease in healthy, usable food to distribute. Red tide is still present at some local beaches here on the Suncoast, but you can help wildlife officials monitor the bloom on the Suncoast. Florida Fish and Wildlife is looking for volunteers who live along the coast to help collect water samples. You would need to collect 1 sample per month from at least 1 mile off of shore. We have more information on how you can volunteer on our website. Just head over to mysuncoast.com. Now let's head over to ABC7's Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan with a look at our first alert forecast.
Well, after our afternoon and evening of some big storms, everything's starting to wind down and push off into the Gulf of Mexico. Still some light rainfall lingering across parts of the Suncoast. I don't expect to see anything too rough for the remainder of the evening. In fact, skies will begin to clear later on this evening, and we'll look for generally fair skies overnight. We are anticipating another round of showers and storms developing again tomorrow afternoon, maybe a little earlier tomorrow afternoon. Upper level low continues to bring us a better chance for showers and storms, a little bit more widespread like we saw today for July 4th. So keep that in mind and keep an eye to the sky too. You hear the rumble of thunder, get indoors. Obviously, it looks as though we are going to see some showers and storms developing in the afternoon. Due to this guy right here, upper level low continues to spin off to the west now, and there's some dry air associated with it, but there's just enough instability in the atmosphere that we'll see an enhanced chance for showers and storms tomorrow midday into the early evening. I think most of the rain should be over by the start of the fireworks for the Suncoast. Now, as far as that goes, we'll see temperatures cooling down a bit too, more likely in the upper 70s, right around 80 degrees, with a good chance for scattered storms early. But by the time the fireworks come on, the rain chance will lessen to around 20%. For much of the Suncoast. Temperatures right now, where it's rained, it's cooled. 72 in Sarasota. It's 83 now in Orlando and 87 in Miami. 94, though, in Tallahassee. Much more on our weather coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Bob. Every year, Sarasota County's 911 call center answers 644,000 calls for service. But how many of those are actually emergencies? And do you know who to call if a power line comes crashing down or for some information during a hurricane? ABC7's Taylor Torregano spoke with the people who answer your calls for service every day. She joins us live with more. Taylor.
Good evening, Jacqueline. Dispatchers tell me it happens a lot more often than you might think. A concerned parent calling 911 for help because their son won't go to school, or that child calling because he's angry at his mom. Both calls clog up the lines for an actual emergency, but with a little education, we can all prioritize.
That's an emergency. I just ordered food, which is totally ridiculous. You could get in McDonald's for $2 what I ordered a kid's deal. I'm sorry. I'm filing a complaint.
Not enough food in their takeout, an unruly child, an annoying buzzing noise.
A buzzing, gutting, whatever. I don't like it. It upsets me.
Is it the noise that upsets you?
Yeah.
All real-life examples of reasons why people have called 911. But it doesn't just happen here. You've probably heard about recent calls to the cops making national headlines, too.
Illegally selling water without a permit?
This woman called 911 on a black 8-year-old girl trying to raise money to go to Disneyland. This video is one of the most recent to send social media on a frenzy, accusing the woman of being racist. But a similar situation happened in May, too, as 4 friends checked out of their Airbnb. 7 cops swarmed them, shouting orders to put their hands in the air. But why?
When I saw the lady like this through the bushes, I said, she's going to call the police.
A neighbor who thought they were stealing. But even during calls for complaints about food, the dispatchers are trained to be calm, cool, and collected.
I've gotten to a point in my career where maybe at the early part of my career, I thought, why are these people calling for such crazy things? Like you brought up a kid not getting up from school. I promise you it happens a lot more than you think it actually happens. But that's what we're here for. I mean, when it comes down to it, that's why we're here.
But the reality of it is, while they are there to answer your calls, there's also other resources for non-urgent issues, and dialing 911 should be reserved for an emergency.
And it's very upsetting because 911 is a serious business, and that call that's being used up by somebody that's doing a prank call or somebody who doesn't really have an emergency, they're tying up a potential phone line for somebody who's having a real emergency.
It's not an emergency, ma'am. I know you guys have more problems with this ridiculous thing that I'm calling you about.
654,000 calls for service per year means on any given day, Sarasota County will receive nearly 1,800 calls. And in the event of another hurricane, the call center will be inundated.
Some people call 911 just to ask a question, and we have non-emergency lines for that. The primary number that people should call is 861-5000. That's a day-to-day number that people can ask any question they want about the county. And then during an emergency, they become the 24-hour citizen hotline.
This year, the Emergency Operations Center has just kicked off a new system, too, giving residents the option to register for emergency updates.
You put in your email address, first name and last name, and when you do, you'll get an email from the county every time we have an update in the Emergency Operations Center.
A crucial effort to free up the lines during storms so dangerous, even the first responders must stay indoors.
I don't think everybody realizes that when the winds for a hurricane reach 45 miles per hour sustained, we can no longer send out emergency vehicles. So when they dial 911, we can't send them a fire truck or an ambulance, a police car.
It's what kept first responders locked down for about 5 hours during Hurricane Irma, responding to 130 emergencies over the phone.
We put a medical director in the center, and he would handle things over the phone along with the 911 operators, helping people stop bleeding, CPR, deliver a baby.
Those are the calls that take precedence, and if you're in a position where you can't call 911, officials also want to remind you of another new service.
Sarasota County can literally just text 911. You put 911 in the to box of the text message.
Call if you can, text if you can't. Just remember to include your address. Of course, if you don't know who to call or are unsure if you have an emergency, dispatchers say it's better safe than sorry and to just call 911. Information like what you should have in your disaster kit and what evacuation centers are in your area can all be found online. I put a link to those resources on our website. Just visit mysuncoast.com.
All right, Taylor, thank you. Coming up after the break, we'll talk with some 911 dispatchers about the impact of those phony calls.
Meet Blue. Blue's not feeling well. The prescription? Generic medication. Blue wonders, do they really work as well as name brands? Yes, generics and name brand medications do work the same. Even though they may look different, generics have the same key ingredients. FDA approval is equally rigorous for generics to make sure they're as safe and effective as name brands. And Blue even saves some green, making him a little less, well, blue. Talk to your doctor about generics and visit fda.gov/generic drugs.
Hi, I'm Chef Bob. Watch Aprons in the Kitchen every Wednesday morning on ABC7, where we'll be serving up the most awesome dishes. Then stop by your neighborhood Publix, pick up the recipe card and all the ingredients.
Excuse me a minute. Hi, Dad. No, don't try to get up.
Hi, I'm Julie, a right-at-home caregiver. And if I'd been caring for Tom's dad, I would have noticed some dizziness that could lead to balance issues. That's because I'm trained to report any changes in behavior, no matter how small, so Tom could have peace of mind.
We'll be right there. We have to go.
Hey, Tom, you should try Right at Home. They're great for us.
The right care, right at home.
This is an important message for anyone with Medicare. You may be eligible for an all-in-one Medicare plan that combines hospital, medical, and prescription drug coverage together with extra benefits that may include dental, vision, hearing aids, and much more. Some of these plans have a $0 monthly premium regardless of your income. That's right. For one low plan premium, or in some cases a $0 premium, you may be able to get coverage for your hospital visits, doctor appointments, prescription drugs, routine dental care, eyeglasses and contact lenses, hearing aids, and possibly more. Today may be the first time you've heard about this type of Medicare plan. The advisors at the Medicare.com helpline are licensed insurance agents who will explain more when you call. Call now to see if you qualify. Call the number on your screen now. Call now to see if you qualify for these benefits. You worked hard for your Medicare. Now is the time for your Medicare to work hard for you. Not affiliated with or acting on behalf of any government agency or program.
The following message is brought to you by Mesobook.com.
People who have been diagnosed with mesothelioma have many questions. How did I get this disease? What are my treatment options? How will this affect my loved ones? You need answers, which is why we offer a free book written by medical professionals who have treated mesothelioma.
Call toll-free at 1-800-777-1366 or go to mesobook.com.
Find out first at 4 with ABC7 News at 4. First alert weather, breaking news, live updates, traffic, all at a new, more convenient time. Find out first at 4. Weekdays on ABC7.
Welcome back. Local dispatchers receive nearly 1,800 calls a day for people reporting emergencies. That means more than 600,000 calls to Sarasota County's Emergency Operations Center every year. But some of those calls can be avoided as people may call 911 for non-urgent issues. Joining us now are Misty Elmore and Mandy Lorenz, both 911 call center supervisors for the city of Northport. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Now, I have a question for you guys. Do people claim they have an emergency, but then you arrive and there's something else that is happening? Misty, you can answer that if you'd like.
Yes, they do. They don't understand exactly what an emergency is, and to them it may be an emergency. And then when the officers get there, it is not.
And how often is this happening when you guys get these phone calls, Mandy?
I would say daily. You know, people don't know exactly sometimes what an emergency is, or you know, that they don't necessarily have an emergency.
Okay, and are there any type of laws or statutes, any types of kind of punishment that can be put in place or that is in place for abusing the 911 line number?
I believe there's a charge for misuse of 911. I'm not educated on that side of the law, but yes, there is that charge that they can use for those types of calls.
Okay, and Misty, I have an article here out of Atlanta. A man was banned from calling 911 after making 100+ calls. Does this sound like something familiar to you? And is it something that you guys see frequently at your center?
Absolutely. You have certain people that will call 911 over and over and over again. Even if the call is delayed and an officer doesn't get there within a timely manner, they'll call 911 instead of our administrative line to see how much longer it's going to take.
Okay, and Mandy, when you get these types of calls, specifically our reporter Taylor mentioned somebody calling about her son not wanting to go to school, and you would think that that wouldn't necessarily be an emergency in that type of situation, but how do you respond to that? Because as you mentioned, to those people, that might be an emergency for them.
Exactly, and we never want to deter someone from calling 911. So in that instance, we would take the call just like we would take any other call. And then the officers would educate them on, you know, what line that they should be using.
And what is that kind of conversation like when you pick up the phone and they say something that might not be your typical ordinary emergency?
You know, we have our policies and procedures, standard questions we ask on different types of calls. So it would be just like any other call. The dispatcher would get that information, put it into the call for service, and an officer would go out there.
All right, thank you, ladies. Well, our conversation continues right after we get a check on our First Alert weather forecast.
Well, a line of intense storms developing from the East Coast sea breeze, an upper level low, and the West Coast sea breeze coming together, creating very intense storms. You'll see that in Lakewood Ranch webcam taking you through time. The skies darken, frequent lightning, heavy rainfall in excess of 1.5 to 2 inches an hour. But now some breaks in the clouds. Things are looking much better for the big event there at Nathan Benderson Park, and should be great for the fireworks at 9:30. One thing it has done is it's cooled us down considerably. After highs today were in the upper 80s to low 90s, things are now into the upper 70s to right around 80 degrees. That long line of storms kind of associated with this upper level feature, which is spinning just to the east of Florida right now, and that will continue to move off toward the west, and unfortunately it'll be in place again tomorrow, and I think we'll see another round of storms tomorrow that could produce some very impressive rainfall amounts. 2.3 inches of rain near, again, DeSoto Lakes in Sarasota, near I-75 in Fruitville. 1.8 inches of rainfall near Clark Road and I-75. Lesser amounts, but still pretty impressive near Lakewood Ranch. About a ½ inch of rain in some areas and 1.8 inches in northeast Manatee County. Lesser amounts near Wauchula. Most of the rain has been along the coast here as a result of that collision of the west coast breeze and the east coast breeze kind of meeting right there. Well, in the tropics, we're watching this area just southeast of Bermuda. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. This upper level feature has no chance of developing. It has to be at the surface for it to develop into anything tropical. There is a surface low here, but it's too close to land to really get anything going there anytime soon as it makes its way off to the west. And it looks as though, as I said, we're in for a pretty pleasant evening after this rain. This light rain comes to an end here. And then we'll see fair skies overnight. There's the low spinning across Daytona Beach on Wednesday here at 12:30. We'll see a possibility of a few showers around the noon hour here along the Sun Coast. At least this model is depicting that. Then showers and storms developing in the afternoon and evening. But as I mentioned, by 9 o'clock, when most fireworks are going to be starting, it looks to be okay here, according, again, to this model. And I tend to agree with it. I think there may be a few isolated showers still around. They'll be hit or miss. So I'll keep a 20% chance to rain at 9 o'clock. And then Thursday, we'll start to see maybe some onshore flow on the backside of this low pressure ridge with southwesterly winds. So there's a chance we could see some showers scattered about Thursday morning near the coast. And then the main focus will be inland on that west to southwest wind. Well, there's a chance for this to develop only at 30% over the next 5 days, but the winds are not favorable for development as this makes its way off to eventually the northwest, then the north, and then in the northeast as a cold front picks it up. The chance of it developing only at 30%. Right now, we still have some light rainfall at the airport, but the temperature is really cooled down to 72. Tomorrow, we should start off with some sunshine. The heat index will not be a big factor. It'll still be hot, though. Mid-90s it'll feel like by noon. And then a few scattered showers and storms I mentioned possible around noon, but better chances come late in the afternoon and the early evening. There's a chance to see some stronger cells move on through. The heat wave is what everyone's talking about in places like New York, as well as into Boston, Philadelphia, and the nation's capital, where temperatures are soaring over the past couple of days. There is some relief in sight as a weak frontal boundary tries to slip through there. For boaters, winds will be out of the east to start things off at 10 knots and then subside to west at 5 knots as that sea breeze develops. A light chop out there. The water temperature warm, 88 degrees. Well, here's a look now at the 7-day forecast. Good chances for scattered storms right through the weekend. The timing may change a little bit here on Thursday and Friday, but we'll get back to those late day storms come Saturday and Sunday. We'll be right back after this.
Choral Artists of Sarasota presents Patriotic Spectacular July 4th, 4:30 p.m. at First Church, Sarasota. Choral Artists of Sarasota's annual Independence Day celebration features traditional patriotic favorites, plus a choral salute to the 100th anniversary of Leonard Bernstein, and a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. narrated by Nate Jacobs. Come for the concert and stay for the fireworks over Sarasota Bay. Tickets at choralartistsarasota.org or by calling 941-387-4900.
I heard about the Dotoli Cancer Center through friends of mine who had been treated here and were very pleased with the treatment.
If there is prostate cancer, we at the Dotoli Cancer Center will find it using 3D color flow Doppler ultrasound.
And that helped precisely identify where my cancer was. I can tell you that you will not find a finer, more professional team of clinicians anywhere in the world.
So, how many of us feel completely confident about our financial future? Let's hear some specifics. Yes, go ahead.
I don't want to be a burden to my kids. When my husband died, it took almost all of our savings to give him a proper funeral. I honestly don't know if there's enough to bury me, let alone cover expenses should something happen.
Okay. Let's talk solutions. One thing you may want to get in place is a guaranteed whole life insurance policy from United of Omaha Life Insurance Company, which is a Mutual of Omaha company. This is affordable coverage, which provides a cash payment which can cover funeral expenses, bills, and other financial needs. Most payments are on their way within 24 hours. Yes, sir.
I need medical exams, things like that.
No medical exams. If you're between the ages of 45 and 85, you can call this number or you can go online and apply for coverage up to $25,000. United of Omaha Guaranteed Whole Life Insurance. Call or go online now.
Hello, I'm John Merce. Rugs As Art is celebrating yet another anniversary, and I would personally like to thank each and every one of you for the many years of continuous support. All during the month of July, we're having a grand celebration. We have flooded our showroom with yellow tag specials, meaning more discounts and more savings than ever before, plus free padding. So don't miss this anniversary celebration at Rugs As Art, Sarasota's bigger and better area rug superstore.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Welcome back. We're continuing our discussion about the number of phony 911 calls to our local dispatchers here on the Suncoast and how they can affect true emergencies. Joining us now are Misty Elmore and Mandy Lorenz, both 911 call center supervisors for the city of Northport. And thank you, ladies, for joining us. My next question. You know, here on the Suncoast, we have a large population of seniors, especially during the winter months when we have snowbirds visiting. How does this play any role into what type of calls are coming in to your dispatch line?
You know, we do get a lot of calls where someone might have fallen and needs, you know, assistance with that. Or a lot of times our elderly are quite easily scammed. So we get quite a few of those types of calls. Those aren't necessarily going to be emergencies, though. You know, that would be something more of a non-emergency. If they have fallen, then of course that's a different story. That would be a 911.
Right. And Misty, when it comes to children, how do you guys respond to those types of situations?
If a child calls, there's different ways that, you know, procedures we handle with a child. And, you know, we address them by name, we talk to them. They're actually more calm than most adults because they don't understand that what they're calling about is an emergency. It's just a conversation for them. So we're able to get actually a lot of information from a child caller.
Okay.
And a lot of them, they translate for, you know, non-speaking citizens.
Right. Okay. And so I can imagine also sometimes if you were to get an emergency call from a child, that could be potentially difficult to emotionally handle. How do you guys handle that emotional side when it comes to any emergency, whether it is a child or someone who is having some sort of life-threatening incident?
Each dispatcher is different, you know, but we're all trained, you know, to take that call and to get it entered as quickly as possible. And then a particular dispatcher might just need to get up and walk around for a few minutes, you know, and just kind of de-stress, as opposed to another dispatcher might just go on to the next call. So it's all in how you know, are able to deal with that type of situation.
Certainly. Well, Misty, let's talk about what happens during a hurricane. We saw last year during Hurricane Irma, even emergency responders were on lockdown after 45 miles per hour winds were sustained. What is the typical protocol when someone calls with an emergency in that type of situation?
It depends on the emergency. With the Northport Police Department, we are police dispatch only. Okay. So if it's a fire call or an EMS call, which is a medical, we would transfer them to Sarasota County. And of course, they would follow their procedures. But we enter calls for service and we tell the police officers, you know, we have a call, but they're not going to respond.
Okay. And how do you differ from Sarasota County Dispatch? You mentioned that you're different because you're different entities. And how does that go about?
Right. Well, as far as the Sheriff's Office and police, you know, similar calls for crimes in progress, but we do not do emergency medical dispatch. That's why they're the public safety answering point. Any 911 call goes to them first, and then they filter out where that goes, whether it's 911, fire, emergency medical dispatching, or police. So they just filter it.
All right, thank you so much. Well, we are just getting warmed up. Our conversation on 911 calls will continue after a quick break.
Did you know that a dirty CPAP system can make you sick? If you knew what could be growing in your mask and hose, it would keep you up at night. Now SoClean.com has released the world's first and only automated hands-free CPAP cleaner and sanitizer. With its patented design, SoClean is fast, effective, and hands-free, killing 99.9% of all CPAP germs. Try SoClean now through this special TV offer free for 30 days. Just call 800-604-0398.
My health has improved. It's simple to use, and I'm not worried about infections.
SoClean works on all CPAP machines and popular masks, destroying CPAP bacteria, viruses, and germs without the daily hassle of washing your system by hand. Just place your mask in, close the lid, and in just minutes, voila! Sanitized and ready to use. Try SoClean risk-free for 30 days. This is a limited time offer. Call now, 800-604-0398. Or visit SoClean.com today.
Did you know you could get life insurance for less than 32 cents a day? With guaranteed acceptance whole life insurance through TruStage, you can get up to $25,000 in protection with a single phone call. TruStage can help free your family from immediate financial stress when you're gone.
Utility bills, mortgages, car payments, those are a lot of things that can add up pretty fast.
And even if you're on a fixed income, prices fit your budget, starting at less than 32 cents a day. Plus, your price will never increase and your benefit will never decrease. And with no medical tests or health questions, you cannot be turned down for any reason. Call 1-800-842-7189. Now, for a free, no-obligation quote, TruStage offers plans to fit your budget. Help protect your family from immediate financial burdens after you're gone with guaranteed acceptance whole life insurance through TruStage. Call 1-800-842-7189 now.
Don't allow your weight to threaten your health or control your future. Excess weight or obesity can cause emotional and physical health risks. But you can take control. The Your Weight Matters campaign offers free resources and tips to help you measure and understand your weight. Take the Your Weight Matters Challenge. The free toolkit prepares you to speak with a healthcare provider about your weight. Your weight does matter. Take the challenge and take control today.
My name is Julius. I have cerebral palsy. I work for Farmer Jeffrey Weising Law Firm. I do a lot of data entry and scanning documents. I want to increase my working experience to make the company much better. At the end of the day, it's good to think of the day's work and to think about what I have accomplished.
Hi, this is Dan Marino. When your business recruits people with disabilities, everybody wins. To find out how, go to disabilitieswork.employflorida.com.
You're watching ABC7 News at 7:30.
Welcome back. We're talking about the importance of calling 911 in a true emergency. Misty Elmore and Mandy Lorenz, both 911 call center supervisors for the city of Northport, joining us tonight to give us some insight. Now, ladies, what is the biggest challenge you face on the job? Misty or Mandy, either of you can answer that if you'd like.
That's a tough question.
Yeah,
every phone call is a challenge.
Okay.
You not knowing what's on the other end of the line.
And I think that's probably what's kept me in this profession for so long, is that fact.
Okay, and so let's talk a little bit about the importance of using 911 properly. In the break, we were talking about some of the incidents that you have to go through and some of the calls that aren't necessarily emergencies. So what are the proper ways of using 911?
You know, someone improperly using it's going to tie up that dispatcher, which isn't going to allow that dispatcher to, you know, then take the next emergency. I would say, you know, only use it if you feel it's a life or death situation. I think we do need to start, though, when children are young, you know, with the parents and in schools, you know, to kind of teach them what is an emergency and what isn't. Using 911 for in-progress calls will assist in how quickly and accurately police are able to respond. You know, our effectiveness depends on that. So, you know, it depends on if we make it there in time for a possible arrest or detention of a suspect. So
certainly. And Misty, when is a true time that you should be calling 911? Can you give us some examples?
In progress calls.
Okay.
Fire calls, medical calls, accidents with injuries. Those are all calls that need a quick response. So if you're looking for someone to respond, you're going to call 911 for that. A lot of citizens call administrative lines with that as well, but we're trained to ask the proper questions no matter which line they call.
And what are some of those proper questions that you are trained to ask when it comes in for a call like that?
most importantly would be location.
Okay, right.
You know, and then tell me exactly what's going on. And a lot of times you will get information that doesn't pertain to this particular call. So you kind of have to keep your caller focused on what's going on at this moment in time.
And speaking of these calls the proper way and the important calls and the true time to call 911, what are some of the craziest calls that you've had come in? Mandy, if you'd like to elaborate on that.
I mean, daily, I would say we get crazy calls. You know, they say if we could write a book, you know, it would be full of that kind of stuff. But the ones that really get me are the children callers. You know, they're not equipped like adults are, you know, with that type of thing. So those really kind of hit home for me when we get the children callers, and you know, they're essentially needing our assistance.
And what kind of efforts, Misty, do you guys make for children? Do you guys go out to schools and talk with these students about what is the proper way to call 911 so they're not, you know, I remember when I was younger, I had friends who thought it'd be funny to maybe call 911, which obviously is not the case, and I'm sure you've had that situation happen. But do you educate the students to let them know what the proper protocol is for that?
We definitely need to have more education on that. Right now, yearly, we have National Night Out, and a lot of kids come by, especially if you're passing out free items, they like to come by and talk, and you do educational on that. And anytime an officer goes out to a call that is child involved, they'll sit and talk to them, explain to them when to call 911, when not to.
And what about education when it comes to adults and seniors, Mandy?
I mean, there's really no education out there. The only education that they might get is, you know, by experience from calling 911 or calling the non-emergency line.
Would either of you hope to see more education for adults and seniors who may not understand the complete use of how to properly use 911?
Absolutely.
Okay, and so let's talk a little bit about what kind of calls hinder the process for you guys. I know there's all sorts of you know, hoops and jumps you have to hurdle for these 911 calls. What is the kind of calls that are kind of slowing you down?
The basic non-emergency type calls, dogs barking, noise complaints, scam calls, things like that. Those kind of really bog us down, which, you know, we take into consideration that all of the calls that come into the call center are important, but not necessarily requiring emergency services.
Okay, and Misty, I have an example of a Sacramento man who called cops on a passenger who was eating a burrito on a train. There was a sign that said, "No eating on the train," but he still called. How do you guys handle that kind of situation? What would be the conversation you would have with that caller?
Well, all calls are handled professionally.
Okay.
Whether we think that's an emergency or not, we would handle it and make that person feel like they did the right thing by calling. We might end it saying, next time you don't have an emergency, call this number. But we would gather the information. Evidently someone's breaking the law and he feels he has to, call and turn them in. But other than that, I mean, it is those type of calls.
Right.
But 911 is an easier number to remember than the local jurisdiction on a train when you don't know really where you are. And if they don't have it properly posted of who to notify, he probably thought he was doing the right thing.
Certainly. Well, Sarasota County receives about 1,800 calls per day, and how many of those are going to Northport for you all? Do you guys know the estimate maybe of a number for that?
I know in 2017 we took 553,000 calls, but those are just calls coming in, whether they're 911, non-emergency, or radio type calls. In an average year, I would say 20,000 calls for service. So you can kind of see how many calls that are actually coming in that are actually calls for service.
Certainly. And Misty, by having these phony calls that come in, is it taking away from true emergencies, and how does that affect response times for officers for you all in Northport?
Well, I mean, it does hinder that. At Northport, you have one dispatcher answering 911 calls. So if you have an emergency call coming in and someone's calling with a non-emergency call, that call is not getting answered in a timely manner, or one that we would consider a timely manner. So we would disconnect and you talk to those. It's hard because people don't have an understanding of exactly how many dispatchers are in a room at one time, how many 911 calls are coming in. So by educating the public on what calls are not 911 calls.
What are those numbers for how many dispatchers are typically in a room versus how many calls are coming in? Is that an even number, or is it a large number for each dispatcher?
In our comm center, there's anywhere from 2 to 4 operators there at a time. So a lot of times, we do have to put callers on hold if they don't have an emergency. But with the earlier question, we are taught to prioritize. So no matter what kind of call comes in on what line, we take into consideration what's going on in that call and prioritize that to know which call will get an officer quicker than another call.
Okay. And what do you guys do to work with other counties or cities? I know you said you work hand in hand with Sarasota County, but what about Manatee County or perhaps Charlotte County a little south of you? How does that work with you guys?
I mean, they're all in the same region. We work together, you could say, on a daily basis. Where we get BOLOs, where, Manatee County is looking for, say, a stolen vehicle. So we know to be on the lookout. So in our region, we, are pretty much work together every day. We might not talk to another dispatcher from that agency every day, but we definitely get BOLOs and things like that.
Okay, and then what would you say to our viewers? Of course, better safe than sorry when it comes to these 911 calls. What would you say to them?
I hate the saying better safe than sorry, but I would say yes, it's better on the safe side if you don't know if you have an emergency or not to dial 911. We never want to deter someone from calling police. And as Misty had stated earlier, it's not always posted what number you're supposed to call if it's a non-emergency. I know we have smartphones now, so we can look up those types of things, but sometimes people feel as if time is of the essence.
And Misty, what are some other resources that people can call other than 911? Are there any other non-emergency hotline numbers, any resources online? I know we saw text 911. You can do that as well.
You can. If you text 911, of course, you're getting Sarasota County Sheriff's Office first.
Okay.
And then, they are a public safety answering point.
Okay.
So anytime someone calls 911, that's where it's routed first. But our administrative lines for general questions is 429-7300. And they would press 1 for police dispatch. A lot of citizens don't realize that pressing 1 for police, even just to ask a question, they don't understand that it's a dispatcher that's able to answer that question for them. And of course, the numbers that they gave in this segment before leading up that Sarasota gave is good, because we don't have a general hotline for questions in Northport. You would literally just call the police department and we would be able to answer those questions. So the county's number is a good number as well.
Okay, well ladies, thank you so much. We'll have to leave it there. We'd like to thank our guests Misty Elmore and Mandy Lorenz, both 911 Center supervisors in the city of Northport. When we return, we'll be joined by ABC7's consumer watchdog Jerry Zivick to talk about the use of Social Security benefits. Stay with us.
The following message is brought to you by Mesobook.com. People who have been diagnosed with mesothelioma have many questions. How did I get this disease? What are my treatment options? How will this affect my loved ones? You need answers, which is why we offer a free book written by medical professionals who have treated mesothelioma.
Call toll-free at 1-800-777-1366 or go to mesobook.com.
They are the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen. But what does it take to bridge the distance and keep them connected to family, home, and country? What does it take to strengthen our service members so they can be the greatest force for good in the world? It takes a force. Be a force behind the forces. Give today at force.uso.org.
Designers do it with style.
Tell me what's going on here. Because
why, you don't like my hair?
The Mark and Mandy Show. In-depth design ideas.
What is up with the tuck tape here? Let's cover it up.
Amazing beauty and fashion tips.
So Halle Berry has amazing skin. Her secret is coffee grounds.
No.
Delicious recipes.
Today, I'm gonna show you a special dish that is sure to please that special someone in your life.
Watch The Mark and Mandy Show right here on your favorite channel.
Did you know that a dirty CPAP system can make you sick? If you knew what could be growing in your mask and hose, it would keep you up at night. Now SoClean.com has released the world's first and only automated hands-free CPAP cleaner and sanitizer. With its patented design, SoClean is fast, effective, and hands-free, killing 99.9% of all CPAP germs. Try SoClean now through this special TV offer free for 30 days. Just call 800-604-0398.
My health has improved. It's simple to use and I'm not worried about infections.
SoClean works on all CPAP machines and popular masks, destroying CPAP bacteria, viruses, and germs without the daily hassle of washing your system by hand. Just place your mask in, close the lid, and in just minutes, voila! Sanitized and ready to use. Try SoClean risk-free for 30 days. This is a limited time offer. Call now, 800-604-0398. Or visit SoClean.com today.
Welcome back. Congress is taking a look at cutting Social Security to help balance the budgets, but that leaves many Americans concerned with the effect it could have on their monthly benefits. Our ABC7 consumer watchdog, Jerry Zivick, joins us now to share more on how you could be affected in the future. And Jerry, what does this really mean for us when you break it down?
Well, I think the coming elections are something that the viewers really need to be concerned about. Depending upon who gets voted in could really impact Social Security. The latest publications from Social Security say that there's enough money till the year 2034. But what we have to realize is there are 10,000 people every day turning age 65. So there are a lot of people coming into the system. And that actuarial calculation is based upon a strong economy where people are putting in to the system to keep the trust fund up. If that trust fund runs out, in just a few short years, benefits can be reduced to 77% of the current level. And the average monthly benefit this year is $1,400. Reduce it by roughly 20%. You're looking at a benefit of $1,100 per month, and that's not a lot of money. It's not going to go very far.
And as you mentioned, you said 2034, that number would be significantly decreased for Social Security for someone under the age of 30. Will Social Security even still be there by the time they reach that retirement age?
That's the question we should be asking you. But I don't think you can rely upon it. It used to be the third rail of politics that nobody would ever risk touching it. But in today's climate and what's been going on, there's a lot of attacks on Social Security. It's been referred to as an entitlement, when in reality, it's something that people pay for through their taxes, called FICA, every year. So I would, if I was your age or anybody's age, I would not count on Social Security alone to be there.
All right, good to know. Well, with the next Congress coming up, will that be the one to maybe fix some of these Social Security issues? And if so or if not, what do voters need to know and ask of their candidates?
Well, this is one of those problems that has been going on for 30 plus years. And there's a lot that needs to be fixed. I think we have to ask the candidates questions. What is their position on COLA? What is their position on privatization? Do they believe that perhaps we could fix Social Security by making the retirement benefit move down the road from 65 to 69 or something like that? Do they want to raise the FICA, how much you put in from your check weekly or monthly, and how much the employer has to put in? Do they want to raise the cap on payroll taxes? These are all questions that we should be asking the candidates. And also we need to remember there's two types of trust fund. There's the retirement fund and there's the disability fund, and what their position is on disability. Disability is in a terrible state right now. If you're disabled and unable to work, it takes over 600 days to get a hearing, and that's a long time if you have no source for health care, no source for food, shelter. It's unconscionable.
All right, thank you so much, Jerry. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Certainly a great topic to talk with us about tonight. Well, thank you to our consumer watchdog, Jerry Zivick, for joining us. When we return, the latest on the Supreme Court showdown. President Trump has interviewed a handful of Supreme Court candidates to replace retiring Justice Anthony Kennedy, when he expects to make and announce his decision. Coming up.
Well, a tremendous round of showers and thunderstorms hit the Sun Coast as a result of an upper level low. On top of that, the East Coast breeze making it all the way over and the West Coast meeting, and that caused the storms to intensify up to 50,000 feet at times. That's the height of the storms, producing a lot of rainfall, but now things are starting to calm down. There's some light at the end of the tunnel, and we did have a reported waterspout from this video. Michael Schaefer sending this in, and you can see from this video off of Longboat Key what appears to be that white on the surface of the water there. That is rotation. Although you don't see it extending all the way up into the cloud, that's definitely some rotation and a circulation of a waterspout. Again, with the storm moving through, and it looks like there could be a boat beyond that kind of traveling through the Gulf of Mexico as well. These tend to form as these storms move through, and you can definitely see the rotation and circulation there as it was trying to get going up again a little bit more intense there into the top or the base of the storm. As far as we're concerned, here's our forecast then as we see it for your evening planner. We are calling for basically cloudy skies through the evening. We'll see temperatures into the upper 70s, and already it's cooled down into the mid 70s for most areas as a result of that rain cool there. That line of storms that produced the heavy rainfall now out into the Gulf of Mexico for the most part. That's where the heavy rainfall is. We're still seeing light to moderate precipitation near the coast and a few isolated cells not out of the question for the remainder of the evening, but generally we're looking for partly cloudy skies through the remainder. As I mentioned, showers and storms possible again popping up around noon, isolated near the coast, a little bit more concentrated, I think, come later in the afternoon and evening as they work their way off toward the west. That upper level low will continue to spin off to the west. I think this model may be a little underdone in terms of the coverage of storms. I think we'll have a few more around through the 4, 5, and 6 o'clock hour tomorrow. And then it moves and shifts off to the west. We'll see that onshore flow on Thursday. That'll give us a chance for a few showers along the coast in the morning with that west to southwesterly wind. Well, we're not going to see much with this. This is the National Hurricane Center giving this a 30% chance of developing just south of Bermuda. If it were to develop, it would take off to the northwest and then north and northeast. Up front, we'll pick it up eventually and keep it away from the U.S. coastline. Could cause some high surf, though, along the coast here. And it looks as though it could draw some cooler air across the northeast, too. They've been battling this excessive heat over the past couple of days now. Well, another area of low pressure right here, too close to land to be too concerned about. It's not going to develop. And as I mentioned, that area south of Bermuda is something to watch. But for us, it's that upper level low, which will kick off more showers and storms again on 4th of July. It's cooled to 72 now as a result of that rain that has occurred, and winds are out of the south-southeast, although they're subsiding now as that heavier storm now has moved off into the Gulf. And as far as temperatures go, well, we'll see highs tomorrow, upper 80s to right around 90. It'll feel like mid-90s, though, for highs by midday. The heat index will be up there, but not at the 100-degree range, it looks like, due to the rain today, actually. It helps cool things down even for tomorrow. Well, the overall picture showing not a lot going around in the U.S. A few storms up in Wisconsin and Minnesota have have now since shifted. The big story is into near Houston and Louisiana, where they're getting some heavy rain from that low. For boaters tomorrow, scattered storms mainly in the afternoon and evening. We'll see east winds turn to the west at 10 knots to start today, 5 knots to end the afternoon. And then the winds and seas will be higher near those storms as they move on through later on. So a pretty good chance for scattered storms over the next 7 days, typical for summer here in Florida. We'll be right back after this.
This is an important message for anyone with Medicare. You may be eligible for an all-in-one Medicare plan that combines hospital, medical, and prescription drug coverage together with extra benefits that may include dental, vision, hearing aids, and much more. Some of these plans have a $0 monthly premium regardless of your income. That's right. For one low plan premium, or in some cases a $0 premium, you may be able to get coverage for your hospital visits, doctor appointments, prescription drugs, routine dental care, eyeglasses and contact lenses, hearing aids, and possibly more. Today may be the first time you've heard about this type of Medicare plan. The advisors at the Medicare.com helpline are licensed insurance agents who will explain more when you call. Call now to see if you qualify. Call the number on your screen now. Call now to see if you qualify for these benefits. You worked hard for your Medicare. Now is the time for your Medicare to work hard for you. Not affiliated with or acting on behalf of any government agency or program.
I'm Anne. I'm a scientist.
Recycling takes a team.
Why don't you let me and me help you out?
Everyone plays a part. Don't trash
I love taking stuff apart and building new things out of it.
what could be treasure.
Pal's my most advanced android. This is awesome. You haven't seen anything yet.
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
Growing up, my mom was afraid of the water, something she did not want me to feel.
So I enrolled Missy in swim lessons.
It changed my life.
Missy Franklin.
And now you can do the same for someone that you love.
There's nothing more precious than your child's well-being.
So act now, before it's too late.
Make us swim!
I'm glad I did.
Thanks, Mom. Visit usaswimmingfoundation.org to find, get, or give a swim lesson.
All right, crew, let's get started. Sure.
Don't ignore the law. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 days before any digging project so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811.
Checking in on primetime headlines, the showdown over the Supreme Court. President Trump interviewing potential justice nominees this week as he gears up to announce his pick to replace retiring Justice Anthony Kennedy on Monday. ABC's Arlette Saenz joins us with that story from Washington.
President Trump hasn't even made his pick yet, but the battle over the next Supreme Court justice is heating up. The president has met face-to-face with 4 potential nominees: Judge Brett Kavanaugh, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, Judge Amol Thapar, and Judge Raymond Kethledge.
They are outstanding people. They are really incredible people in so many different ways, academically and every other way.
The president also interviewed Republican Senator Mike Lee by phone, and he's expected to talk with 2 more contenders, federal Judge Thomas Hardiman and appellate court Judge Joan Larson. Outside groups are already ramping up the pressure. ABC News has learned anti-abortion rights groups and activists are lobbying senior White House officials against Kavanaugh and arguing in favor of Barrett. An abortion rights group is readying this ad targeting Maine Senator Susan Collins, who could be a critical swing vote.
A candidate for this important position who would overturn Roe v. Wade would not be acceptable to me, because that would indicate an activist agenda that I don't want to see a judge have.
With Republicans holding a slim majority in the Senate, there's little margin for error.
If he can keep Republicans together, he's able to get his pick. And critically, he can lean on some red state Democrats who want to show that they're close to President Trump, potentially to confirm his justice.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell hopes to have a justice confirmed by the start of the Supreme Court's next term in October. Arlette Saenz, ABC News, Washington.
The former congressional staffer who President Trump has called a mystery man pleaded guilty today to lying on a home equity loan application. Imran Awan worked as an IT specialist for congressional Democrats, including former DNC chair and Florida Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Conspiracy theorists spread allegations that he was involved in the hack of the DNC computer systems ahead of the 2016 election. In Awan's plea deal, the government shot down those allegations, stating there was no basis on those claims. The Trump administration is planning to remove a set of Obama-era policies that promoted the use of race in college admissions to promote diverse educational settings. The Wall Street Journal first reported about the decision. It comes as the Department of Justice investigates whether Harvard University discriminates against Asian Americans in its admissions process. The Trump administration is specifically overturning documents that laid out the legal recommendations and guidelines for schools that wanted to promote diversity. Walmart is taking heed for a line of anti-Trump merchandise sold on its website. Third-party companies produced the Impeach 45 and Impeach Trump items. Trump supporters voicing their frustration about those items on social media. Some even threatening to boycott the retail giant. It appears Walmart has taken those products off of its website. The retailer still sells Make America Great Again and Donald Trump Speaks for Me apparel. That's all the time we have for this evening. I'm Jacqueline Matter. Thank you for joining us and have a great night.